I'm milling about with Seth Larney, who is the writer director of 2067. Hi, Seth.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for having me.
Should I say good morning?
Good evening. Yes, yes. It's morning here. I guess it's evening for you, right?
Yeah. So I love this backdrop behind me. I was just saying to your publicist how the buildings are all on fire and it looks so cool.
Yeah, cool, but kind of like ironically sort of scary, I guess, in 2020.
Yeah, like very eerie. Were you like thinking of that the future would like amount to this when you were writing it?
Yeah, well, ironically, this burning city and this kind of apocalypse was always in the script. And the script, we were working on the script for quite some years. But by the time we actually came to film the movie, we ironically had quite a lot of trouble trying to find locations to film in Australia because, like yourselves over there, we've had obviously quite a difficult time with fires. And last season, while we were doing this, the visual effects shot that you have behind you right now is one of the visual effects shots with burning in the movie. And all of those shots were some of the last ones to come in while we were working on the film. And right as we were doing those shots, the bushfires were raging all the way across Australia. And I actually there was a day that I remember clearly where actually my monitors behind me here, I have 3 monitors set up and I was reviewing this big visual effects shot of a fire burning half of the earth down. And then on the next screen, I had the fire radar that the government puts out where we can track where the fires are moving because my father's house and my mother's house were both being evacuated on the same day. And I was just praying that they were going to be safe, obviously amongst everybody else that was suffering this horrific thing. So yeah, we had planned it for a long time, but we didn't know obviously it was going to be so literal as the film was being released. Yeah.
That is just crazy. Everybody's okay. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, everybody here at our end is fine. Luckily, some of the people's families who are close to me weren't so lucky, so we're very blessed. Yeah.
Oh my, I know. I have friends in Australia that were very, very worried. I mean, the summers there are just out of control now.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, Australia's always been hot, and I know obviously in the States you have similar issues in parts of the States, but it's just it feels like we're just at a tipping point, and just progressively over the last few years, it's just been getting noticeably worse and worse. Just the swing from the extremes, and you can feel it here in Sydney. It's already this year getting hotter now at this time of year than it should than it did last year. So.
Mm.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We still have time to turn things around. I think, that's why I made the film because I really believe that we can do it. So.
Yeah, I hope so. In lieu of how entertaining and fun this film is, there is a very deep underlying message about climate change.
Yeah, that's right. It was really important for me. I grew up a really big fan of these sort of classic sci-fi movies. I'm a big fan of genre films, but particularly a fan of the sorts of genre films that have these sorts of big picture themes infused kind of at their core in the fabric of them. And I was trying really, my intention was to make a movie that is first and foremost fun for people to watch, that it isn't, hopefully it doesn't feel preachy to anybody. Hopefully it just feels like if you want to go out and have a date night and have this fun romp and you're a fan of sci-fi, hopefully it will kind of satisfy you on those levels. But I think the biggest blessing as a filmmaker is if, we're able to make those sorts of entertaining movies that if you can leave the cinema and think, what, actually this makes me feel differently about the world somehow. That's just like the perfect kind of combination for me. So, sorry, my phone. So I hope that's what people feel and take away from it. Yeah.
So, Seth, have you gotten that type of feedback from people who are into the environment and have seen this film and were really inspired by it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the film's only been released in the States in the last, I think, 3 days or so. And already I've been getting a flood of messages from people that, are sort of deeply connecting to the message of the film. And feeling like, the most moving messages are just the simple ones where someone might tweet me or reach out and just say, I believe now that we can make change. We are in control, and the film really is just an allegory for that. As I said, it really is very sci-fi. So it's about time travel. We don't have time travel in 2020, but it's more about the message of it, and just hopefully opening up a conversation about us believing that in ourselves, and that our changes have consequences. Our actions have consequences for our world. Yeah, we can do it together.
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure that you are very green. Am I correct? Like you're doing all the right things there.
Oh yeah, I try to, I try as hard as possible. That was, I think, one of the things as we were even making the film, even in my own life, I've always been incredibly inspired. Like, I started writing this film 15 years ago, right? And I grew up in this beautiful rainforest in Australia. We didn't have electricity or running water. It was just a log cabin that my father built. And I grew up swimming in the rivers and climbing trees. And then when I moved to the city to make movies, I just realized that, and I'd heard this stat. I think one of my earliest memories was being on the back of a truck as it was driving through the forest and waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was probably only like 5 or 6 or 7 years old, and seeing all these people with torchlights shining up at this enormous tree, like the size of which you couldn't even imagine. The one that we have in the movie is, I don't even think, as big as this one. And it was this activist that had chained themselves to this tree and was protesting against the loggers in the community because they were logging the old growth rainforest where I grew up. And these trees are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, if not thousands of years old, right?
Yeah.
And I was only 5 or 6 and didn't really understand the kind of like, the consequence of what was going on. But when I moved to the city to work on movies, I had heard this really horrific stat, which is that we're logging the Amazon rainforest at a rate of something like 3 football fields per minute. And the Amazon accounts for 20% or more of the Earth's breathable oxygen. And it just really freaked me out. So that was really the motivation for writing the film, was that I'm terrified, that we're not going to leave this incredible natural resource for the generations to come, and it's not our place to do that. But yeah, while making the movie, some of the smaller changes in my life, like simple things like just using a reusable coffee cup, that's things that sometimes people don't think about, I think make a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah, talk about this spacesuit that Kodi Smit-McPhee wears. I heard he had some wardrobe malfunctions from time to time wearing that suit.
Oh yeah, he was he was such a trooper because, Kodi's like, he's a real character actor, and I think that we were making a movie.
He's wonderful in this, by the way. Wonderful in this. Yeah.
Good. He'd love to hear that. I think so. I think I just think he's absolutely incredible. But there were things in the film that, I had said to him, look, man, like, if you don't feel comfortable doing this, like if it's too physical, we're shooting out in the heat of the Australian rainforest, you have to wear this suit, and the suit is quite heavy, right? Like, it's not just heavy, but it can be quite suffocating. And even not just that suit, because when the boys are out in the 2067 world, they're always wearing these full face masks, because you need these masks to be able to breathe. So just even acting with something like this in front of your face all the time, I think can get really intense. And the suit was heavy, has this, people that see the film, it has this big backpack with these kind of aero brakes on it that is designed to help him kind of crash land and not die as he's traveling through time. But yeah, he was such a trooper. Just, he never complains. He just gets in the thing. He does it. And to the point where I have to always say to him, "Are you sure that you're feeling okay with this?" Because he's, no, it's totally fine. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, be careful, But yeah, he's just amazing.
Because there was like some sort of fog issue or something. I mean, talk about lack of oxygen. I guess there was a lot of oxygen.
I think it's funny because like when you're making these sorts of movies, and our film, hopefully it feels bigger than what it really is, right? Like, it's not the budget we were trying to do a lot and really push this is definitely a type of filmmaker that I am. I always trying to get the most bang for buck out of everything that we do. But on the bigger budget movies, it's the small things, like you would have a fan inside the helmet that circulates the air so that it can defog. It's not even so they can breathe, just so that it can defog the glass. But those are the sorts of things that we didn't have sometimes. So we're trying to hack together things to kind of make it work, and testing it at the last minute. So yeah, we had some issues with fog, but we managed to get around it. And yeah, I think we made our way through it okay.
His best friend in this film is like one of my favorite guys from True Blood. I have to tell you, I had a huge crush on him.
I think you and a lot of the world.
How, like, what was the set like with the women on the set? Were they going kooky over Ryan Quanten or what?
You pretty much universally get the same reaction that you just gave. Yeah, yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, they had great chemistry together. So was there like some sort of bonding process that they had before they started shooting?
Yeah, yeah. Well, those guys, when I cast both of those guys, they were both in LA and I was in Sydney. And I wasn't able to fly over there and meet with either of them personally. So we sort of did the whole casting process through Skype. But I was a huge fans of both of them before I approached either of them. So I knew that they were both perfect for those two roles. And, you know, for me, it was just a matter of getting them on board. If I'm not remembering incorrectly, I think what we did is set up a meeting between Ryan and Kodi after I had spoken to both of them individually, and got them together on their own so they could just go and hang out for an afternoon in LA. And they just really hit it off. You know, they instantly connected. I think just as human beings as well as over the script and the relationship in the movie, and their relationship and their dynamic together, I think really makes the film, because in so many ways, what those two characters stand for in the bigger picture of the movie, in the kind of bigger conversation of what the theme is really at the core of what this struggle is between all of us, I think, as human beings, and what the movie is trying to talk about. So it was really essential that we had two actors that could embody that conflict in a really real way. And I think that they did that amazingly. Yeah.
Speaking of real, you are a whiz at visual effects. So what was real and what was not real in terms of the effects?
In terms of the effects, well, we were really lucky and also sort of like a challenge in that we had to kind of build everything from scratch for this film, because we were really creating a world where nothing existed. So there's barely any real location shooting in the movie. Everything's either a constructed set for the most part, or it's a visual effects set extension. But what I really tried to do, and I try to do this with all of my movies, is for me that my movies are really intimate and just quite personal stories at their core. And they're wrapped up in this sort of bigger fun, hopefully bigger fun adventure sort of type genre framework, right? So I try and when we're showing a visual effects shot, it might be a really big, massive VFX set extension where you try and really sell the quality and the texture and the scale and the tone of the world in a shot. And then you can go into a really intimate, dramatic scene in the next scene that doesn't have any visual effects for the next, short period of time, because the film really lives in the intimate moments. And I think that the audience takes the memory and the feeling of that scale that you've set with the visual effects with them, so that you don't have to do a huge visual effects shot every 2 seconds. It can just be one moment where it's like, oh my God, this is where we are. And then I really care about the characters and I'm invested in this scene, which is now quite intimate. So we tried to do that as much as possible. Obviously all the backgrounds of the city are all visual effects. All the backgrounds of the movie are essentially all visual effects. And then all of the sets we built in a studio. Yeah.
Very cool. I was doing the math. I won't be here in 2067, but hopefully the world will be.
Yeah, I hope so. I believe we will.
Thank you, Seth, so much for joining me, and have a great day.
Thanks, Robin. You too. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
All righty. Take care.
Take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Always news.
Always refreshing.
Always candid.
Always milling about.
Robin Milling delivers what celebrities are saying to you.